I saw this video a while back, and I just didn't have time to respond because I've been so busy. When I see videos like this, I almost believe that is being said tongue-in-cheek. Doing a response video is difficult because the assertions Popp makes are on their face so absurd, and yet I need to respond because the ideas he presents are exactly the kind of ideas that hold men back. The challenge comes in untangling the web of misconceptions and outright lies that make up the core of his ideology. I could only get in 5 minutes before I realized that Terrance Poop, like most traditionalists, is not completely honest about his position, and that he's probably not being honest with himself either. In fact, I have not heard Terrance Poop say that he's a traditionalist, and yet he comes off as one by the many things that he says. Most traditionalists have a mentality that traditionalism is the default human condition of human beings, and yet they also know that the word has become a dirty one in many circles online. The fact that he has such close ties to AVFM only reinforces my suspicions. I could understand if he titled his video as something like, "Bullying is a part of life," but when he says bullying is good and offered it as some sort of solution to a greater social ill, I can't help but think that he's not really thinking through what he means, and or that he's just being sensationalist and shocking for the views. I tend to think his videos are more entertainment than anything else, and that he's really just trying to crank out as many as he can. I normally wouldn't do a response video to such garbage if it were not for the fact that his video received so many upvotes. While such a video may at a glance seem like low-hanging fruit, it needs a response in light of the fact that men as a whole seem unwilling to come to terms with their own nature. On many MGTOW channels, men continue to piss and moan about not getting laid and cultural Marxism, but few men seem to introspect and look at how their own behavior contributes to their own disposability and misandry. Even more to the point, very few seem willing to get anything done to fight social misandry. In fact, many equate any pro-male activism with the so-called complaining and so-called collectivism of social justice warriors. In their mind, the problem is that we live in a weak, effeminate, leftist, complaining culture. I don't think men are more naturally right-wing or individualistic. They do, however, seem to instinctively suffer from a desire to form social dominance hierarchies. They posture and attack each other in order to establish a pecking order. They only seem to get shit done once a leader emerges that tells everyone what to do. If a leader proves themselves ineffective, they will simply collectively dispose of them and find another man to fill the void. Men always talk about how effective MGTOW is because it is decentralized and leaderless, and yet men perform terribly under such conditions. It's hard to tell if MGTOW is even a movement or a community when many who wear the label refuse to even discuss with each other the nature of what they are doing. Quite frankly, at this point it seems neither. Men inevitably will bicker over the most trivial of shit, even if it is over the internet. In fact, men seem to have a desire to dominate and, dare I use the word, oppress other men. The most destructive part of it is that I don't even believe anymore that it is a conscious effort to gain access to females. Such behavior is so hardwired that it is unconscious and instinctual. It is not part of some mating strategy. This is not to say that it didn't have reproductive value in our past. In our past, a conquering tribe would have had access to the females of a conquered tribe. It's just that the end result would be too removed from the process itself. It is very common throughout the animal kingdom for two males to non-lethally compete over a particular female. However, it is very uncommon for a group of males to annihilate another group of males to improve their genetic reproductive chances. Humans and chimpanzees are, in fact, the only animals to engage in genocide. In fact, it seems that the more intelligent and more social that a species is, the more violence there is within such a species. Primates are more violent than other mammals towards their own kind, with chimpanzees and humans being on the top of that list. Humans were killing other humans long before private property or overpopulation were any sort of problem. There was no need for genocide. If one tribe is capable of wiping the males of another tribe out, it could just as easily drive them off good land or take their women by force. If anything, genocide would be a threat to our species' survival. The fact that we are the only species left of many hominid species that once roamed this planet is a testament to that. As it is with evolutionary traits, there are often no rational explanations. Being genocidal has no survival advantage from a species point of view. There are countless examples of maladaptations throughout the animal kingdom. Modern humans are the only species of many left in the Homo genus that evolved from other great apes between 2 to 3 million years ago. We barely survived the numerous ice ages that ravaged this planet. There are more chimpanzees alive today than human beings at many points in our evolutionary past. Being tribal and genocidal did not provide us with an evolutionary advantage per se. It just worked out that violent tribes were more successful at passing on their DNA. In short, men are hardwired to be violent towards and oppress other men due to our evolutionary history. It also stands that such violence at a group level would only be possible if men were able to keep each other in line and put themselves at risk for the benefit of the group. Men have to demand that other men accept their disposability. They have to establish a strict hierarchy and rules and police each other. While this certainly had its evolutionary advantages when it comes to hunting large game, such a trait can be extremely maladaptive when it comes to tribal and intergroup conflict. As Coltain recently put it, men are the architects of their own disposability. Like a lot of traditionalists, Popp's ideas seem to consist of a lot of posturing and moralizing on what men and women should do. They also involve knee-jerk reactions to our contemporary situation without any actual substantial thought as to how we arrived at this point in history. This video in particular seems to be riddled with unsubstantiated assertions and straw men about pretty much everything. While I do not disagree that SJW/feminists are just crybabies that need to be told no and put in their place, his so-called solution of just saying to have more bullying in general is fucking absurd. I get that he's trying to be entertaining first and foremost, but I honestly believe that he's on some level, he believes what he says. Like a lot of content producers of all sorts on YouTube, he seems to just focus on volume and style as opposed to content. Bullying will not stop feminism or so-called leftism. If anything, it will actually reinforce it. SJWs do what they do because they know their place in the hierarchy. They are the bullies, and they are the bullies because they know they are the establishment. They know they have the backing of the media, government, and society at large. In spite of all their victim-mongering rhetoric, they know that feminism is the dominant ideology. This line of thinking reminds me of the Nazi trope that the German army of World War I was stabbed in the back by the leftist politicians and Jews, or that the U.S. could have won Vietnam if we had dropped more bombs. It is a willing delusion and a lack of desire to acknowledge any basic reality of the situation. Contemporary society is not suffering from some sort of massive political failure or conspiracy as much as it is suffering from human instincts that are not adaptive to modern industrial society. There's a YouTuber called Analyzing Male Slavery. In his video called On Superficially Pro-Male Rhetoric, he states very succinctly, and I quote, "There are plenty of men that do not cope and adapt. There are plenty of men who perish underground to dust by this anti-male society. But I got a feeling most right-wing men are okay with that. They want to live in a male dominance hierarchy. They're just upset that playing the old game doesn't give them the same old rewards that it used to. Also pointing out how useful men have been to women is a form of groveling and begging." End quote. Men know women are socially dominant over them, but too many men are unwilling to face the fact that they are simply not needed by women anymore. Men are content with being used by women. Women simply do not find them useful anymore. Traditionalism is the mirror image of feminism. Both use similar rhetorical sleights of hand to advance an agenda, and both rewrite history. Both are gynocentric. The only difference is that the last vestiges of traditionalism are on life support, while feminism has become the dominant ideology of our age. Traditionalism is the dying corpse upon which the bacteria of feminism feeds. The old system is long dead and decaying. There's no resuscitating it. In fact, this process has been going on for so long that even feminism itself now appears to be decaying. This idea that men need to know their place in the hierarchy and should just try to be a team player is one of the greatest failures of men. This, if you can't beat him, join him mentality has led to all the worst genocides and atrocities throughout human history. As Analyzing Male Slavery stated, and I quote, "People use and discard men at a whim. Women no more use and discard men than men do to other men," end quote. It is actually a huge part of the reason why men are drawn to groups and why they are so violent in such groups. Men hope that even if they might not be themselves winners, that they can at least be on a winning team. Every soldier in history has either thought or been bullied into outwardly accepting that they are on the so-called right side of history. I even remember Terrance Popp calling Vietnam draft dodgers cowards. What of the troops that massacred innocent Vietnamese civilians? Would he have the same opinion of of deserters of the Third Reich? Is the measure of a man his willingness to fulfill obligations thrust upon him? What of his own conscience and character? Men like Popp refuse to acknowledge that even the best and most democratic of governments make mistakes and are prone to corruption and duplicity. Their need to serve and be useful supersedes the actual values and consequences of the masters they serve. Tradcons act as though being tough is the only valuable aspect of masculinity. Being tough and brave are only virtuous if they can be tempered by wisdom and a sense of justice. Bad people can be tough. It's just a means to an end that served a purpose in our distant past. In our mechanized age, being tough serves no real survival purpose in acquiring food or shelter. It serves an even less of a purpose in conflicts between states when nuclear weapons and long-range missiles are involved. Feminist men turn towards feminism as a means to escape their disposability. Many such weak men know that they have no place under traditionalism, especially in this modern setting. They know they in turn are being team players so that they don't get shat on. Telling men to be tough team players is not going to have the results Popp is looking for if he's actually serious about what he's saying. I'm not suggesting that men try to change themselves to follow some feminist dogma. To the contrary, men should and need to be free to pursue their own self-interests on their own terms. There are plenty of ways of being masculine that do not involve being disposable or even being a team player. One can still embrace traditional masculine virtues without serving a master or a woman. I can't help but feel Tradcons are not honest with themselves about what they really want. I can't help but feel men like Terrance Popp have no concept of who they are outside of what they do for other people. He has spent so much of his life being a servant, he doesn't even know what his values really are. His sense of honor has been foisted upon him and is devoid of compassion, empathy, or thorough understanding. He was only drawn towards MRAs because of an ugly divorce, but he is not interested in seeing men free from a system that enslaves them. Like other MRAs, he sees divorce as the problem, not marriage itself. It would be one thing if men don't want to help each other, but they actively tear each other down and shame each other. They use shaming language to get men to accept their own disposability. They obsess about irrelevant abstractions such as conspiracy theories, and they obsess about female nature. In fact, a lot of the time, such scapegoating and bizarre obsessions are used as an excuse for male complacency. Men in particular don't want to help other men who might otherwise be competition in the sexual marketplace. Men are also embarrassed to stand up for themselves because doing so would be an acknowledgement that they've been abused and taken advantage of by women, and that they are not as valuable to women as they would like to think. Your average man distances himself from any man who can be seen as low status or weak. If men like Terrance Popp enjoy being disposable, That is their own prerogative. I can't understand why he wants to drag other men down to his level. Traditionalists are always droning on about the collectivism of the left and the state, but at the end of the day, they all want men to be a carbon copy of themselves and to serve what they deem to be the so-called greater good of society. Traditionalism, in that sense, is just another form of identity politics, no different from feminism. I find it even more distasteful in light of the fact that such traditionalists love to piss and moan about the injustices of the family court system. Nobody forced these men to marry, and quite honestly, the majority of them made stupid decisions based off of really bad value systems. If they were honest and consistent with themselves, they would lay in the bed they have made for themselves and try to learn from their mistakes. They would abandon marriage altogether and advise other men to do the same. Even more disturbing is the fact that the source of all their posturing is financial. Basically, child support and taxes. Many of these men are upset that they can't remarry again because of a lack of financial resources. Their real concern seems to be a loss of status. Such men spew their spiritual vomit about manning up and taking responsibility. And yet, why can't such men take responsibility for their own mistakes? Traditionalists are not even doing anything to challenge feminism in any serious way. The little open organizing in public that traditionalists do to change laws shows me that either A, they are incompetent, or B, that they're just not serious about change. Complaining online about divorce isn't actually doing anything. Change requires forming broad alliances with other groups and working within and without the system, not just propagating an ideology. Framing issues in the right way to gain popular support is more important than scapegoating alleged ideological opponents such as feminists or cultural Marxists. As devious and duplicitous as feminists are, at least they get shit done. Traditionalists seem mostly upset that they lost out in the sexual marketplace of an outdated institution called marriage. The old paradigm is dead. If men are not willing to look inward and adapt, it will not be long before they are made completely irrelevant by a mechanized society. It is not the largest or the toughest life forms that survive millions of years. In fact, life forms at the top of the food chain are the first to go extinct during massive climate change. The life forms that survive the ages are those that are able to adapt to various environments. Technology has radically changed the society that humans live in within a matter of centuries. Men are going to have to look inward and think deep. Half-assed platitudes about being tough and manning up are not going to change a complex, rapidly changing, and indifferent society. Male disposability is the enemy. Feminism and the family courts are just symptoms. Unless men are willing to change themselves, nothing will ever change.